So these are my two bottom pieces from Fennel. It has darts at the bottom, and next we have the top section. I used corduroy is the material that I'm using for the top. You can also make this entire bag with vinyl or cork, but I'm just going to use vinyl on the base. So let me put the other pieces away, and we're going to add the bottom section to the top. So this is my top piece, and I'm going to use one of the top and one of the bottom, and we're going to stitch them together, and then we're going to repeat the steps for the other two pieces. So make sure that you have your pieces aligned correctly, and that we have the wider section is where we're going to connect. The wider part of the top is where we're going to connect it with the vinyl piece. So line it up and make sure that they match so that you don't make any mistakes. Mine is upside down right now, so I have to put it the other way. So you can mark the center of both your pieces so that you have them lined up correctly. Place them right sides together, and then we're going to pin them in place. I know it doesn't look like they're supposed to be together like this, it's not matching up, but you're gonna place your vinyl along the curve of the top section and pin. So if you turn over to the top side, then you can follow the curve so that you can have it pinned correctly in place. After that, we're going to take it to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew along the edge using a 3/8 seam allowance. Okay, now we're going to sew top stitch across about 1/4 of an inch, and you can top stitch, you can pull the seam allowance down that we just stitched and sew it down towards the bottom along the final section, but I don't want to sew on my final, so I'm just going to leave it up, and I'm just going to sew along the top part, which is the corduroy fabric. I'm going to sew along there to hold it in place. But according to the instructions, the correct thing to do is to pull the seam allowance down towards the bottom and sew it in place. Top stitch on the vinyl, your choice. The exterior panels are now complete. Let's set these to aside for now and continue with our slip pocket. So this is our slip pocket pieces. We have two pieces. We're going to sew them together. Now we're going to place them right sides together, and if you're making this, I would suggest that you add some woven interfacing to your pocket pieces to hold them nice and stiff to get a better shape. I'm not using any woven interfacing, so now I'm pinning them together, right sides spacing, and I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew around the perimeter, leaving a space on the top straight edge. That straight edge is what we're going to use for turning the pocket right sides out. So we're going to stitch around using a 3/8 seam allowance, but we're not going to stitch the opening with a 3/8 seam allowance. What we're going to do is we're going to use a smaller stitch length to sew around the perimeter up until the opening. We're going to back stitch at the beginning and the end. Then we're going to continue across the opening using the longest stitch length that you have on your sewing machine. And then we're going to press it open, and then we're going to remove the basting stitch. Essentially, we will be basting the opening close, and then we're going to remove the basting stitching, and we're going to turn our pocket piece right sides out. This makes it easier so that when you're finished turning your pocket piece out, that you can get a nicer line, and it will match back evenly with the stitching that you've made around the rest of the pocket piece, if you understand what I'm saying. So I hope that is clear enough. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments section. If you want to share any thoughts You can also let me know if you've made this bag before or if you intend to make it. I think it's pretty easy and it's great for a beginner. You can try this out if you want to start working with patterns. This is a great way to figure out, um, you know, what type of patterns you like, uh, which pattern maker makes the best patterns that you find suitable for you, that you find easy to understand and follow, and if you want to purchase from them, you can do so. The free pattern is like a preview to the type of bags or patterns a particular pattern maker produces. So it gives you a feel for uh, the type of bags that they have to offer, and if you want to work with them or not. Now, so I enjoy making the blue color bags. I like the instruction. Everything is big, it's clear, and you also have video instructions to help you to go along with some of the bags. So now I'm doing the basting stitching in the center where the opening is. I'm using the longest stitch length on my sewing machine, which is 4 mm. Uh, Remember, when you're trimming the seam allowance down, make sure not to trim the seam allowance at the opening section. That is the section where you use the long stitch length to base, because we're going to need that material to fold inwards to stitch the opening close. So it's very important to not stitch in that area, not to trim in that area. Okay, so take your iron and press this area open, and then we're going to remove the basting stitch and turn over. Stitch the opening close, then take one of your lining pieces, place the pocket in the center and stitch along the sides and bottom to create your pocket piece. Let's move on. Our exterior lining pieces are prepped and ready. We have our pocket on our lining. We're going to adhere our zipper to our bag. Now before we do that, let's prep our zipper. So the zipper has a piece of vinyl on one end, and I use a bit of glue to hold the vinyl in place, and I had it clipped and ready. So now I'm going to stitch across using about a 1/8 seam allowance, and then I'm going to trim the sides down to match the zipper tape. Now I've marked my zipper on the end that I'm going to open from, 1/2 inch down from the edge. And I'm going to separate my zipper tape a bit, and I'm going to pinch at that 1/2 inch mark and fold it back towards the teeth, because we want to curve the zipper end down into the fabric when we sew it. So I'm going to stitch this in place to maintain the curve. It's a bit tricky, but take your time and you will get it. If you're having a difficult time with your sewing machine like I'm having, then you can hand stitch. That would be much easier to do. So hand stitch and spare yourself the frustration. Okay, so our zipper is now curved and prepped, and it's ready to be installed. Okay, so now I'm placing the open end of my zipper to the left, because I want to open from left to right. Just find the center of the zipper just to make sure that it's where it's supposed to be. It's a tiny mark, just so that I can see it. Alright, so we're going to pin this in place. I was doing a bit of talking earlier and did not realize that my mic was off, so maybe you missed some things, but I'm sure that you can just follow along and see what I'm doing. To get these patterns, you can get them from the Blue Collar website. They're all free to download with proper instructions and diagrams. So you can go there and download it and follow along. Okay, so we're going to paste this in place.
I'm just using a 1/8 seam allowance. I'm following the curve. Doesn't matter that I'm using a thread that doesn't match, it won't matter. It's not going to show. But to be on the safe side, you should use a matching thread. Okay, so now we're going to add our exterior piece. See which one looks best for the front. Let's go with this one. We're placing right sides together with our lining, lining up into the center. I already had my center marked. So you're just going to start from here and come across. You're going to sew across now using a 1/4 inch seam allowance and your zipper foot.